Now, we're all human and we all need to relax in some way, shape or form. And what better way to unwind than to the sounds of some of the best music in the galaxy? Figuring Dan, Cy Snootles, Aurodia, Ventafoli, Lulio Primarch, Gaia. I'm sure you've all heard of them, renowned names in the galaxy, but they all pale in comparison to everyone's favourite Ortolan, Max Rebo. So it's a pretty good deal that tonight we are joined by the man behind the Max, Simon J Williamson himself. Sir, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for making the time to come on, Simon.
I have. I've made lots of time. I've created it with my bare hands. You know, like a man creating a puppet. I've just created the time for this.
Well, hopefully you've created enough, because what we haven't told our listeners is this is going to be the 5-hour Max Rebo special. So you guys get your drinks ready. Yeah. Get your vodkas, get your beers, get your cup of teas, and you Americans, I don't know, what do Americans like? Coca-Cola, coffee,
Probably
Fanta?
Americanos,
yeah, I like that. I like that. Well, Simon, Max Rebo, Gamorrean Guards, Return of the Jedi. You were all there for it. At one time in the UK, before Star Wars was released, it was, of course, made in Elstree here in the UK. And a lot of the production crew thought that George Lucas was a crazy man making a crazy story. People thought, what is this nonsense? It's never going to be popular. No one's going to like it. And a few years later, they're back in London again, and they're making the third installment of the Star Wars original trilogy. And you were blessed enough to be part of that. Simon, how did you first hear that you were going to be involved in Return of the Jedi? And did you know that it was Star Wars at first, or was it a bit of a mystery?
Oh, absolutely. I knew they were shooting what was at that time the third Star Wars, and I don't think I made an approach, but I was kind of trying to work out to whom I could make an approach. But they contacted me because some 6 months before, we'd completed shooting on the Dark Crystal at Elstree Studios, the same place. Hugh Spite seems to think, although I don't recall it, that while we were shooting Dark Crystal, some of the Star Wars people came round and had a word with us or with him. But to my recollection, I was just approached. Said, do you want to be in Return of the Jedi? Which, of course, I'd been, waiting for news on it, and said, absolutely. And the wonderful thing about it is I didn't even have to audition. So they took a group of, I think it was 4 of us, people from Dark Crystal, puppeteers. Well, we were the mime side of the puppeteers. They were on Dark Crystal, made by Jim Henson. There were the regular Muppeteers who played the Skeksis, which were largely upright characters, and a group of, I think it's 8 to 10 of us we played principally the Mystics, but also any other creatures. And these were creatures that essentially didn't often go in line with the human body. So we were real creature characters. And so that was our skill set. And that's what they needed in part for Return of the Jedi, specifically the Jabba the Hutt sequence. So I was hired as a puppeteer along with Swee Lim and Hugh Spite from Dark Crystal. And then later on, I think Mike Quinn and Tim Rose. So we were hired as puppeteers, but the work we did was mostly the kind of work I'd done on Dark Crystal, which was essentially mime with a bit of sort of puppeteering on the end of it. Because as I said before, it's creatures that don't conform to the human body in the way that the Skeksis did on Dark Crystal. So we had the mimes and the puppeteer creatures all on Jabba the Hutt's set. And what happened was they assigned a creature to you. And they gave me one rather unappetizing looking purpley brown slug-like thing with 6 arms and 6 legs, which I wasn't very enamored of, but I got on with it. Where we did a couple of takes or a couple of practices, and I think it was Richard Markwand, the director, who didn't really like this character very much, so kept on, shoving him out of shot. And George Lucas kept on coming, said, no, let's put him back in. Anyway, in the middle of this, Phil Tippett approached me, who made a lot of the creatures, and had worked before with the great Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
And he said, would you like to have a look at this character? And they took me up to the creature room, and there was this bright blue sawn-off elephant, a 2-legged elephant. And I just thought, absolutely, I would love to play him. And so I was Max Rebo from that point. And I'm not sure 6'6", which was the purpley slug-like creature, ever made it into the film, although I have a few stills pictures of the character. And I was Max Rebo mainly from that moment on, apart from times when there were Gamorrean guards as well. But obviously, due to the magic of movie, you can have a sequence and you can play several characters in the same sequence because it all depends on where the camera is pointed. So it points one way and shows Max Rebo, gives the reverse shot, and it's another day or the next day, and I'm in a Gamorrean guard costume. I had my greedy fill of playing all these wonderful creatures.
You are a greedy boy, Simon, because not only are you the legend Max Rebo, but Jubnuk, the Gamorrean that was eaten by the Rancor, that's you as well. So when you see the Rancor chowing down, he is in fact eating Simon J Williamson. So the magic of movies, he survived.
I think he's eating a model. And I think the stuntman did the first part of the fall, but then I pick it up from being sort of on one knee in the process of getting up and then turning to face Mark Hamill, and then suddenly turning around and there's this huge, a big blank wall, actually, big blank wall of the studio. And they said, it's this height and he's that big.
Look scared.
Act, etc.
Look as scared as possible.
They didn't, I have to say, they didn't really call me a tall, but just the kind of, it's just my way of speaking. So you have to act. And it was rather funny because at one point where just before I'm grabbed by the Rancor, I'm sort of on a slant trying to escape up a sort of pipe, and I was off balance by that point. So I'm in this massive Gamorrean guard costume. All my weight is on my stomach. So I'm sort of flailing around. And so I couldn't easily get up if I wanted to. So at the end of the take, I'd need to be helped up. But it suddenly struck me how ridiculous it was, a grown man, as I've said before, playing a green pig, reacting to something that isn't there. And I'm aware that my Gamorrean guard foot is swiveling away and I think possibly falling off at this point. Because I wasn't sure, and I wasn't sure whether it was a wide shot at that point or a close-up or a medium shot. So I didn't know if the foot was in shot. But obviously, if it had been, they would have cut. So I just carried on. And I'm chuckling away inside the Gamorrean guard costume. And, of course, it doesn't read because the costume is so thick. In order for you to act and have your movement read on screen, you have to move even larger, have to give a larger movement to make it read as a small or medium movement. So I'm happily chuckling away there, but there's no kind of shaking shoulders or anything else. Like Muttley, was Muttley in the Wacky Races?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was Muttley. Yeah.
So I was chuckling away like Muttley, but of course it doesn't show.
The consummate professional. You mentioned Richard Markwand, and I think it often gets overlooked who actually directed Return of the Jedi, and it was Richard Markwand. Yes. What was it like working with him? Because I find that Richard is, again, this is going to sound odd to some ears, but almost like the unsung hero of Return of the Jedi, because everyone talks about, of course, George's contribution. This is George's world. But what was it like working with Richard? We don't really hear the stories of Richard Markwand on set.
He was quiet, efficient, and got on with the job, not showy.
Yep.
if someone was a bit grumpy, like, say, Harrison Ford, he kind of kept it all, he kept a good, calm ship, I would say. And reputedly, he was hired by George. One of the reasons he was hired was because he didn't do many takes.
Right.
So that's all. So he's no Stanley Kubrick that would do 30 or 40 takes.
Yeah.
So I think also, again, reputedly, because I'm never in the production office when these kind of things are discussed, they wanted to keep the budget down because on Empire Strikes Back, I think they got ripped off a bit by local hoteliers when they went on location. As soon as they heard it's a Star Wars film, they put all the prices up to double. So it's little things, they just increase the price. So, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many films are made with a code name nowadays.
Yeah,
but you're talking, I find it so surreal that we have, I was hearing something today. I was listening to a football show and someone on there was saying, man, the best job in the world is to be a footballer. The second best job in the world is to talk about football. I disagree. I think the best jobs in the world are the ones where you get to work on Star Wars, and the second best ones are the ones where we get to talk about Star Wars. But for you, Simon, to work with these people, I find so surreal that you were amongst that. You were amongst such Hollywood history, cinematic history.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite memories of working with these, I want to call them Star Wars big names, whether it's Richard Markwand, George, Luke. Yeah. Any favorite memories?
Yeah, George was very quiet and Richard Markwand was very quiet. And I think that's how George liked it, really. So possibly George didn't want to be overshadowed. So he chooses a director of a certain character. But I really liked Richard. There's a shot, a picture I've seen a few times of Richard directing me as Max Rebo. And because I'm encased in thick rubber and I hear with difficulty and can't see anything, I just often think, I wonder if he could hear and I could hear anything he said if I was aware I was being directed. Because there's this shot of him talking to Max Rebo.
I've seen that shot. Well,
I don't know.
Google search.
Yeah.
I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have.
Well, Carrie kind of kept herself to herself, but I was starstruck by actually Paul Simon, who she was going out with visiting the set.
Simon
and suddenly there's a bloke with, I think, slightly receding hairline, long dark hair, a Hawaiian shirt, sitting in Carrie Fisher's chair, the canvas chairs you have with your name on the back for your director stars. And I just thought, God, I know who's that? I know the face. Oh, it's Paul Simon. So I was actually more starstruck by Paul Simon than
I didn't know that. Yeah. I didn't know that Carrie Fisher was courting Paul Simon. I didn't know
so.
that.
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but I think they did have a relationship, or he certainly knew her, and I think it wasn't just buddies. Yeah, so I was more starstruck him. If you're working with people in a scene, you have a job to do, an acting job in the loosest term. So you can't really be starstruck by people you're acting with. Apart from a little bit beforehand, you might. But once the scene starts, it's getting on with a bit of work. So soon you don't keep that balance of I'm down here and you're a major star up there, really.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And that's important. I think that's a professional way to keep it. I think that's when the work comes out as genuine. And from what I've read and from what I hear is that the sets were fun. They were good fun to be on. There was a good vibe. I mean, it looks like fun. And I know it was a lot of hard work too. General question, Simon, was it good fun to work on this, to do this?
I remember it as fun. And I remember it as being fun on a slightly different level than Dark Crystal. Because on Dark Crystal, our status as performers that I've talked about before, the Muppeteers playing the Skeksis, they could get in and out of their costumes a lot quicker, and they were the regular Muppeteers. So there was a slight status imbalance between the Skeksis performers and the rest of us, I think, but not a huge one. So yeah, but it was fun. But it was also, I was also on Dark Crystal for a long, long time. It wasn't just the shooting. There was 6 months of preparation before that. And some of the mechanisms to control the mystics were crippling. So there was a lot of pain and trial and error before we actually got to shoot. And then there were days when we weren't doing much. So you have boring days on set. Whereas on Return of the Jedi, I seem to think we were on it for less time. There was less downtime. We were kind of busier, yeah. And actually playing something like a Gamorrean guard is less intricate than any of the characters on Dark Crystal.
Right.
Because there's a slight, without being disparaging at all, there's a slight cartoony element to the Gamorrean guards. Yeah. They have to walk in a certain way. It's rather sort of brutal. They have to rock from side to side in a certain way. Yeah. And also Max Rebo, for example, has a kind of comic feel to him. So it's kind of, yeah, it's more fun sometimes to be able to relax and not to be hyper real in the way that Dark Crystal was really about making sure these creatures were absolutely real. Yeah. And I think while we were rehearsing, there was a tendency for the Muppeteers to, in relaxing moments, to revert to sort of Muppet-like movement, which is kind of walking along, then looking at the camera and zooming off quickly. It's kind of so, and the whole feel of Dark Crystal was about make it not Muppet movement, make it real character movement. Yeah, so that's a long kind of rambling answer to
it's a good answer
with about working with big names on the set.
We're here for that, man.
I mean, Harrison Ford. There's a bit where Han Solo is shoved up before Jabba. The bit before Carrie Fisher is licked by Jabba. Nice. What an erotic scene that is. Anyway. So I was one of the Gamorrean guards holding his shoulder, and because of the mechanism on the Gamorrean guard hand, I couldn't grip tightly. And he said, "Can you grip me tightly when I struggle?" I said, "I can't because, the fingers will go." And he says, "No, but just hold on and I'll do it." So he did. It's his shoulder moving. It's like the principle of grabbing someone's hair in a fight sequence. And what you grab their hair, they grab your hand. So they hold your hand close to your skull, and then you can move around as much as you like. And it looks as if they're pulling you by the hair, which would be really painful to do. But so it's a bit like that the person being pushed is actually doing the movement. And the person doing the pushing, in this case me, is kind of hanging on.
Right. Wow.
And Mark Hamill was just so nice and polite. I just remember he came as he said, "Oh, he made it feel as if it was a privilege for him to be working with us." And he was talking about people in the cast who were working with the Royal Shakespeare Company or the National Theatre. So I thought that's nice of him,
He comes across as a nice chap, does Mark Hamill, and I'm sure Harrison is as well. Yeah.
I think Harrison gets a bum rap sometimes for being a bit grumpy. I've referred to it myself there, but it's because he's a perfectionist. And if it's you on a massive screen, you have to be fully concentrated. You don't want anything going wrong.
You've got nowhere to
hide. You're safeguarding your own image and your future work. So if there's a take where you think it's not good enough, you bravely have to say, "Sorry, I need another take for me."
Yeah. And that makes sense. I was just thinking, because you've obviously come off of the Dark Crystal, and I imagine a lot of our listeners will have seen or heard of the Dark Crystal, even if it's the newer Netflix iteration, so they'll know the vibe. Anybody else, I would have asked, what was it like sitting in Jabba's palace dressed up as a blue elephant when you've got all these other crazy creatures around? But I guess the Dark Crystal probably set you up for that. But with Max Rebo, did you know he was a musician, and how did you kind of approach playing this character? What instructions were you given, or were you just told, look, sit in this like ring and just play?
Yeah, well, you're sitting in the middle of a massive organ with pedals that depress, that with your, you press them down. No, they gave me some tape of some music, which I listened to the night before. And then the next day it comes out on playback, and I was familiar with the music. So I basically know where-ish to move my fingers. So it's all playback, as they call it. So it's not live playing on set, not me playing the music. It's all played in, which is probably a guide track, and later on you dub the proper music over the top. But so there's a guide track so that everyone in the scene is reacting to the way the music should be.
And does Max Rebo play with his hands or feet? This is a question that's plagued fandom. What appendage is he playing with? Hands, feet? What's he on?
Definitely plays with his feet. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have arms or fingers. He plays with his legs and toes, and that's what I saw in the caricature when they showed it to me.
Wow!
And then when I'm delighted when they start producing little merchandise and little models of Max Rebo, and then there's this four-limbed creature. I was so disappointed. So
that's not our Rebo.
Yeah.
Well, it's huge though, isn't it? It has become an icon of the original Star Wars trilogy. It's become so recognizable, whether it is through merchandise, through Lego figures. I mean, Simon, have you seen? You're looking. I can see you're looking to see. I've got a
load of Max Rebo things on the top of a mirror up there.
Have you seen how much a Max Rebo Lego figure goes for on the internet nowadays?
No, how much?
I mean, you're looking at anywhere between 50 to over £100 and more. I mean, there's one I saw one just now.
I thought you were going to talk serious money there, man.
I mean, we are talking about a small Lego figure here, guys. Yeah. This is tiny.
Yeah.
But I think there are certain versions of it. Our boy, one of our loyal listeners who's local to us, his name is Johnny Olive. He loves Max Rebo. He has Max Rebo t-shirt.
Did you say Johnny Ola?
Johnny Olive.
Oh, right. Okay. Because there's a character in, I think, Brian De Palma's Scarface called Johnny Ola. He's a gangster.
He is a gangster, but it's a different one. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say Johnny Olive is a huge gangster.
He's a massive Rebo fan.
But he is a huge Rebo fan. And it was only the other day he shared with us, with our little community that listens to our show, on a big chat that we have on a forum. He was like, guys, I'm on eBay. Should I go for this Max Rebo figurine? And it's this Max Rebo playing his instrument, and he's bought it. It's there. It's sitting proudly in his home right now.
Well,
I mean, what did you at that time? Because it's interesting that earlier you said you were taken upstairs or into a room and you saw the elephant-looking alien, and you were like, "That's the one. That's my guy."
Mm.
At that time, did you think, man, this thing is going to be so recognizable? There are going to be factories around the world creating toys and merchandise with this guy on it. Did you have any idea it'd be this popular?
No, because at that stage, Dark Crystal wasn't even out.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what expectations beyond doing the work and being proud of it. And I've always, throughout acting, when I started, I've always liked doing very physical things. So the satisfaction of doing a job well, that's all I thought about. And I thought, of course, if it's famous, I might get asked to do something else, in the way that being invited to work on Return of the Jedi was being asked to do something else from having done Dark Crystal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, yeah, I didn't really think it would have that much impact. And also in the credits, it didn't list all the characters people played. So I was in a list of puppeteers, a list of names as puppeteers.
Right.
And there was a list underneath of the mimes. And it didn't go into detail, but I just thought, well, I will know I'm that blue elephantine character. And there was a film magazine that came out, not sci-fi magazine, but just a general film magazine. Quite an intellectual one, I think, all sorts of BFI articles. And on the front cover was a lovely still shot of Max Rebo. So I got that and I think, oh, that's for my personal scrapbook. That's great. Oh, wonderful. Not many of those, sort of a rare occurrence. And now these days, having traveled the world, signing my autograph many thousands of times on those pictures, it's difficult to kind of remember that impact, the kind of pride of having that photograph on the front page.
Yeah, of course.
And then actually finding he's called Max Rebo.
Was he not called that to start with?
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty sure he was, certainly while we were shooting. And I thought, oh, they've decided to call him Max Rebo. Okay. He was called Red Bull Jet.
Red Bull Jet?
Yeah.
Max Rebo rolls off the tongue a bit better than that.
Whoa!
And that afterwards, it's Max Rebo is playing the Red Bull Jet organ.
Yeah.
The organ is called the Red Bull Jet, but on set it was Red Bull Jet. So I think there's a book I got as well, a little kind of paperback about the making of Return of the Jedi. So flick through it to see mentions of me, etc. And there was a telegram from Stuart Ziff back to Lucasfilm in California saying, Red Bull Jet looking fantastic, day 3 of shooting, whatever. And so that was, certainly at that stage, he was called Red Bull Jet.
Wow.
And I thought, do I like the name Max Rebo? And I thought, yeah, I think it's cool. I quite like it. Yeah.
Changed your name by default, right?
Yeah.
That day you were like, right, that's it. That's it to the family. Going down the passport office.
Yeah. I think it's probably changing his name to flee people he was indebted to.
Well, he's been in a bit of trouble. He's escaped a sail barge destruction.
He's a bit of a scallywag, I think. And, yeah.
He is. We want to know how he knew that barge was going to blow up. So, yeah. Simon, if you've got any intel there, we'd love to know. But you've said about taking Max Rebo, taking yourself around the world and signing.
Yes, that's because there's a Star Wars convention circuit.
Oh, there's plenty of conventions, isn't there?
Yeah.
Which is, for us fans, it's great because we then get to interact with those cast and crew who've worked on our film.
Yeah, it's been a bit slim on the ground in the last couple of years, obviously, because of COVID. But I've done two events post-COVID.
Nice. And how do you find meeting fans who love this character? What does it mean to you, who's brought this character to life, and now 40 odd years later, people are still excited to talk about it, the character, talk to you about it.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you?
Well, the 40 years later bit is a bit sobering. But it is gratifying because, they come to you and they're genuinely interested. So there's nothing worse than kind of being there with your table of photographs and it's quiet and it's quite exhausting, actually. Not talking to people.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there waiting for something to happen. Then you think, oh, okay, this is the day when nobody wants my autograph or only 5 people want my autograph all day. And I'm here for 2 days. So tomorrow is going to be really grim. But yes, it's never been like that. Sometimes if it starts slowly, but yeah, it's when you have a little queue of people, it's actually quite nice. And it can be quite competitive. If you've got a queue of people and you look over to your left, to your right, and your compatriots don't have a queue, you think, oh, that's great. I like this.
That's natural, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can imagine. And there's plenty of those conventions, especially the Star Wars Celebration ones, the official Star Wars conventions. Yeah. I think you've been to one of those. I think I saw an old video on YouTube of you at the one in Germany.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I think I've been to all the last Celebration Europes. 3 of them I've been to, and I've been to 2 celebrations in the States, but not for something over 10 years, I think. So it's about time they invited me back. So anybody from Lucasfilm or Reed organizers, I'm up for another visit. This coming year, 22.
We're convinced they're listening. We are convinced they are listening, Simon. So we'll try and make that happen.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen, because there is a lot of Star Wars content that comes out nowadays. Matty Boy and I, we grew up with the prequel trilogy, the stuff that came out in the 90s and the noughties.
Oh, right, yeah.
And we're now experiencing this new wave of Star Wars films. Now it's owned by Disney. There is a series that's come out recently. It premiered in December, the Book of Boba Fett. Have you seen that, right?
No, I haven't. And the reason is I'm not currently subscribed to Disney Plus. Right. I'm not one of these people that goes and likes to download things with BitTorrents, whatever they are. You know, kind of illegal downloads that appear and disappear. I don't like doing that. But rather like when Dark Crystal, the series, came out, I didn't subscribe to Netflix. And so when it did come out, that was the thing that made me subscribe to Netflix. It's also for the last 2 or 3 months, I've been, I'm in BAFTA, the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, and we vote every year on the best films. And it means really we should be watching a lot of films. And so I've got through about 200 in the last 3 months. Yeah. Some of them I didn't watch all the way through because I'd start and I'd think, well, I'm sorry, but this is not going to get my vote.
Yep.
So, but I've kind of worked my way through. It's not it's 200 we should watch. I've watched about 120. I counted it the other day. So I've been rather busy on that. So I thought, well, we've got the final round to vote on in the next couple of weeks. So I might want to watch some of those. And then maybe in a couple of months, I will actually subscribe to Disney Plus and I'll finally catch up with the Book of Boba Fett. And the question I think you're going to ask is, what do I think of the Max Rebo that appeared?
You know about it.
Well, yes.
You know about it.
I am on Facebook, so I do get sent things. I've seen a tiny bit of footage, but mostly stills. And I look at the stills and the footage, and I have to say, he ain't my Max Rebo, baby.
Oh, no.
He's not. To me, he doesn't quite work.
So it's not the same?
It's not just because they didn't ask me to do it. How dare they?
I was going to say, were you not approached at all?
No. I think they would have filmed these in America.
Yeah, these ones, the series, so Book of Boba's in Los Angeles. Yeah, and it was shot, a lot of it during COVID too.
Yeah.
So even if they wanted to get you out, they probably couldn't have.
They could have approached. I think I would have.
Nice to be asked.
I would have liked to be asked. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he looks a bit. There's a couple of shots. He looks a bit like a balloon. So I'm being a bit rude here, aren't I? After the new Max Rebo as opposed to my classic one, as I regard it, the one I very much regard as my own. So of course I'm very proprietorial about the character.
Of course.
Did bring it to the big screen, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel at all good that they're still continuing with the legacy of this character? Because it probably could have been quite easy to let Max have his time in the sun in '83 and think, right, we'll get a new musician in. But the fact that they're continuing at what you started.
Yeah, it's difficult to say because I was kind of disappointed with the look of him. The head is too round. It's too much like an elephant. It wasn't as good as the original, I have to say. Not as a puppet, and and the Gamorrean guards as well. I'm thinking, well, they're too skinny.
Yeah, right. You're not the only one who said that. Yeah, but some people are saying that, well, it's a conscious decision that these Gamorreans are just buff because they're healthy and they're in good shape, whereas Jabba's Gamorreans were just sitting around going to the McDonald's drive-thru every other night, feasting on a Big Mac or 5. I don't know. There's probably some in-universe reasons for it. But
I think that's justification after the fact of them appearing. They say, it's because this. But somebody made the decision to make them skinny. I think they wanted that in The Mandalorian, didn't they? They wanted a kind of fight between them. So yeah,
very true.
Yeah,
very true.
I think they should get some stouter ones back on the scene as well.
Now, would you be happy to do more Star Wars stuff if they did approach you? Because they make the stuff over here in the UK too. A lot of the films, there's series.
I would love it.
Would you be open to that?
I would love it. In fact, I approached Neil Scanlon at the end of Rise of Skywalker, a screening of that, and I pointed out who he was, and he said, "Oh, I'll have to bring you into the shop one day." And I sent emails reminding him. I never got the invitation, but I think now he has such a group of puppeteers around him that he's used before that it's difficult for anyone to come back into the fold. And as we said at the beginning, it is 40 years later, so he wasn't around so much with 40 years ago. Now different people in charge, it's run on a different, it's sort of, you lose track over this degree of time with people who are in power to hire and fire. So it's natural that they go off and do their own version, etc. So, but yeah, I would like the idea of some kind of cameo or something like that, in the way that Jeremy Bullock was, as well as playing Boba Fett, he plays real human in it, in one of them. Can't remember which one. There he is. So
Empire Strikes Back, he played an officer in that as well. But I mean, we'd love to see you back in Star Wars. Let's say that now. So hopefully, if Neil will be listening, reply to those emails. Yeah, well, you've carved out your character though, which is something to be excited about.
But because I also played Gamorrean guards and I puppeteered the eye blinks on Nine Numb, and there were a couple of characters when we were shooting Nine Numb. I think we shot over a couple of days. As soon as we did Nine Numb, we got back in the same kind of cockpit and shot 10 Numb. And then we did a character which we called Ernie Akbar. So Mike and Tim Rose and myself were there for a couple of days, I think, on one of the smaller stages. And as Mike reminded me, George Lucas directed that, which I'd forgotten about.
Forgetting that George Lucas directed that part.
Yeah.
With Return of the Jedi and all of the characters you worked on, all the people you worked with, and the moments you got to be a part of, put you on the spot now. What's your favourite moment of working on that set? Whether it was working with someone or was it maybe a blooper or something? But what's the kind of one thing which you take away that's always going to be with you?
Good question.
It's difficult to pick one. It really is.
We'll have them all then.
So I'll pick 3.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yes.
When I decided that Max Rebo should beat in the band with his fingers. Oh, no, actually, two modes. That and also blocking his eyes from the thermonuclear detonator. Because I thought, because, as I said, this is a character who doesn't have hands. So he's blocking his eyes with his feet. I just thought, oh, this is such a good gag. I'll do it, and let's see if they like it. And yeah, obviously it stayed in the movie. And also beating in the time, because I didn't get a lot of Max Rebo direction. Mm-hmm. Or if I did, as I said before, and Richard Markwand was giving me great pearls of wisdom, I didn't hear them. And the other thing is, because I couldn't see anything, I had to kind of, in my head, orientate myself with where I was looking on set, the direction I was looking. Mm-hmm. So there could have been takes where I'm looking completely in the wrong direction, for all I know.
Doesn't come across. Max Rebo comes across as the most vital character in Return of the Jedi. And without that music, they wouldn't have set up that entire scene where everyone's having a dance and in the lead up to Jubnuk getting eaten before the Rancor dies. So, but no, honestly, I love hearing behind the scenes stories, and just the stories of Richard Marquand shouting in your ear has made my evening, because I know the picture you're talking about. But I've always wanted to know what it was like working with Richard, and it's just lovely to hear your memories and your thoughts of working with him.
Sadly, he only made a couple of other films after that. I'm not quite sure what he died of. I suspect, as he was comparatively young, it would have been a cancer of some sort. Yeah, so he made a very short, a small film in France called something like Until September with Karen Allen from Raiders. And then he did a film that was a bit of a disaster called Hearts of Fire.
I've heard of
with I think it was Rupert Everett as a musician, had Bob Dylan in it, and a young leading actress called, I can't remember now. Yeah, and that didn't do very well. It was a bit of a disaster. So I think Richard Markwand was taken from us too suddenly, really. I think he would have gone on and made a lot of good films. He did before. Mm-hmm. He did a spy thriller called, I want to say, The Key to Rebecca. Could that be right? And it was showing in Leicester Square in the centre of town the week I got hired to work on Return of the Jedi. So I went along thinking, well, I'll have a look. I'll have a look at this director, what he's like. Even though if it was terrible, I still would have loved to be in a Star Wars film. I would have gone ahead.
You would have flattered him anyway.
Yeah.
I have actually one last question, and it is a bit of a random one. But whenever I do watch Return of the Jedi and Jabba's Palace, it probably is just because I'm thinking, well, they're on Tatooine, and as a kid, I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, well, this is all real, isn't it? It's not make believe. I'm actually watching real life here. It did half look hot in Jabba's Palace. It looks really warm. Was it warm filming it? Was it super hot being in that suit? Because I think the guys who did Jabba's suit, they said they got really hot filming those scenes, right?
Oh, yeah, it's hot. It's hot on the set, but it's even hotter inside the costume. And most of them were made of a rather thick rubber. Yeah. And it was thicker and hotter than anything that Jim Henson's company had on Dark Crystal, because I think the Henson wanted to keep their ingredient for their special type of foam a secret. So obviously on Jedi, they were working without the benefit of this research that the Hensons had done. So it's rubber, and it's really quite thick and quite hot. And if the costume is close on you and you're in it for a while, then it's pretty uncomfortably hot.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think I'd last 2 minutes in that at all.
As you mentioned that you said you didn't think you would last. Well, with the Gamorrean guards, we'd heard that they put extras in the Gamorrean guards for the first couple of scenes, and they were really wilting on set. I think one or two of them had fainted even. Mm-hmm. And Hugh Spite and I got to hear of it, and we said, listen, we worked on Dark Crystal, we're kind of trained to do this. Can we show you what we'd do? And so we got in Gamorrean guard costumes and we put on a little show. We did some acting, running up to Howard Kazanjian and frightening, intimidating him and stuff like that. And from that point onwards, Hugh and I were the go-to Gamorrean guards whenever they needed just two. The sequences later where they had 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm. You guys are the OG. Yeah. So obviously you graced us in Return of the Jedi, and I know that is possibly Luke's favourite, certainly Luke's comfort Star Wars film is Return of the Jedi. Out of all the films that have been released in Star Wars, last question for me, which one is your favourite?
Well, it's got to be Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, that's the one. That's it.
It is. We have a saying here. We say it's the feel-good film of the year every single year. Yeah. It's just, it makes you feel good, doesn't it? Let's be honest. It never fails to put a smile on our face. I think it has, like every single film in the world, it has its issues. Yeah. But it fills me with such warmth and hope by the end of it. I think it is one of the best endings to a film trilogy ever. And I adore it. And Simon, for you to be part of that history, not just a little bit, but a big bit, it's so incredible.
But that sequence you're talking about, the Ewok village, when I'd got the job and they said, come down to Elstree, meet a guy called Stuart Ziff. He'll take you around. So I went round, and all the time Stuart Ziff was saying, well, if you get on the movie, we're on this stage. Come through to this stage. And it was the giant redwoods of the Ewok village, which is truly, it's one of the most brilliant sets I've ever seen, apart from the opening day and the opening sequence in Dark Crystal. The Mystic Valley was tremendous. But this one as well, and we go from stage to stage, and people say, "Oh, hi Simon, are you on this?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." And after a while, Stuart Zeff, having thought I wasn't necessarily on it yet, I wasn't hired, said, "Oh, I guess you are on it then." Quite funny.
Amazing. Amazing.
But you must like the Ewoks then.
Yes. Look, I like them.
Yeah.
And I because I grew up with it.
I've grown to appreciate
as a kid, I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, I hate Ewok." Like, I just thought, well, they're part of the canon. They're part of the story. I have no opinion on them. It's fact. It's there. You know, it's just one of those things. I know that there were a lot of adults that disliked them.
More for kids. And I also think if you're a teenager of a certain age, you wouldn't want to admit to liking something too cute. So I can imagine lots of, I don't like the Ewoks. They're teddy bears. They're cute, you know. So, but yeah, it is all part of a wonderful film and a wonderful series of films. And I noticed there's a lot of hate online for some of the newer films that have come out. You think, well, yeah, it's good that people are passionate about what they think is their Star Wars. The fact that they take ownership of it in this way. But yeah, I think some of it's unnecessary. You know, there can be things you don't like as much, but I would say you just gotta like all of Star Wars really, and not be too disappointed that things that don't go quite the way you would want or expect.
Spot on. We've heard it from Max Rebo, Jubnuk himself. Just be kind, just enjoy Star Wars, and just be nice to each other. But no, that is a fabulous way to wrap up the interview, and I certainly hope the world can take those words on board, because it's a wonderful fandom, as you all know firsthand from meeting so many people around the world. And let's embrace love, Luke. Let's embrace it.
Yeah, that's it. Celebrate the love. Yeah. Celebrate the love. Thank you so much, Simon.
My pleasure.
And this has been fantastic. Max Rebo forever.
Cheers. Thank you very much.